AI shopping agents can recommend a product, answer a question, and even complete a purchase. But what happens when the transaction succeeds and the customer experience fails? Today, we're examining whether AI shopping agents are helping customers or quietly driving them away. Welcome to Beyond the Cart. This is a show where we explore the strategies, technology, and customer experiences shaping the future of e-commerce. I am your host, Kyle Hamar, and AI is beginning to change the entire shopping journey. Customers can now use it to research products, compare options, ask questions, and really receive recommendations before they even visit a brand's website. And so that creates enormous opportunity, but it also creates some serious questions. Do these agents understand the customers? Do they represent the brand accurately? Does it make shopping easier? Does it introduce other layers of frustration? And what happens when an outside platform controls that conversation between a brand and its customer? Well, joining me today is Keith Zubchevich. And Keith, welcome to our show. And we're happy to have you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Your opening was spot on. So many topics and so many things confronting all businesses, by the way, but in particular e-commerce. I think it's an exciting time and exciting topics.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm trying to set the table for our conversation. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. So Keith, give us a quick, maybe like 2-minute summary of your background, how you got involved in sort of this whole AI and the conversation between AI and e-commerce, because it'd be great to kind of hear your quick story.
Yeah, I started my career in technology about 35 years ago, right out of college, and very, very early in the early days of technology. And that's a great decision because I've loved the innovation. I've loved the pace of change, how fast technology changes, how fast businesses adopt technology. So it's been a phenomenal career choice. And I've seen several technology evolutions through my 35-year career that have been, massive evolutions that businesses have achieved, either massive productivity, massive efficiencies, massive reach, with the internet and .com that came out. So I think the position that I've always had and I've seen is this massive evolution that has always changed business and changed how people work. And then the last 2 years, I think, is AI has come out. And I like to say AI is the largest and most influential, impactful technology revolution in my 35 years. And I think it is easily the largest, what I call revolution. It's not necessarily even an evolution. It's a revolution to hit not only businesses and productivity, but to hit humanity. I mean, this is something much bigger than any single technology evolution that we've seen before. So we started Conviva 20 years ago measuring video experience. So we said, if you're going to build a video product on the internet, you need to make sure the experience is incredible, or else people will go back to cable television. So there was this whole streaming thing. People wanted to watch on streaming, but television businesses knew that I had already created an incredible business and I have to protect that business and build the same experience online. So our foundation is an experience. That's what we built the business on. We built the technology on, and we delivered it. And what we were proud of is that we were architects and early pioneers of why streaming succeeded. Then about, like I said, 2 years ago, AI came out, and again, massive revolution, and now agents are popping up. And we have the same sort of premise, and the topics of your show is spot on. Is agents are not just technologies. They will either create a great experience or a bad experience. And so we now look at the same sort of promise and commitment to retail or to e-commerce and say that you don't just need to launch an agent because it's good, it's automated, it's a conversation. You have to make sure it's delivering on the experience that you expect, or else people will go back to what I call thumb typing in apps, thumb typing in digital products, right? It's a new and better way, but it has to have an experience to go with it.
Love it. I love it. So let's dive in and let's tackle our sort of first topic and how AI is changing the way people shop. And before we kind of get into the risk, how would you describe the difference between, you kind of touched on a little bit, but how would you describe the difference between AI shopping agent and the sort of the search chatbot recommendation experiences that customers already know?
Yeah, search and chatbot is just a low level entry point where you can actually type a word in. So the difference, there's sort of 3 steps. I'll start at 3 steps. One is the original digital product, which is that I have to go in, I'm clicking buttons, I'm searching, I'm scrolling, and I'm loading things to cart, or I'm reading reviews. Very manual, very task-oriented, very click-oriented. The search chatbot basically said, well, I'll tell you what, don't look through pages of information. Why don't you just ask me what you want, and I'll bring it back up on the search results. So that was really the first small, really small innovation in which conversation was part of the digital experience, in which I could just type something in, or maybe in some cases speak, and it brings back what I want to see. An agent now goes even further, and the thing that I think everyone needs to understand is the promise of agentic is not a chatbot search, which I can just say, hey, I want to look for this, and it brings it up on a page full of stuff. It's actually a conversation. It should be a back and forth. It's like talking to a sales rep. When I go into a Nordstrom and I need help, right? I don't ask questions and then walk away. It's a back and forth. And they're asking me questions and I'm saying what I want. They're asking me more. And it's identifying me, what I'm looking for, intent. It's understanding what do you like? What do you want? And then they go off and they go do something and they bring it all back. Not a single page of a lot of stuff where they bring me to a rack. They actually bring back and say, what do you think of this? That's the ultimate promise of agentic shopping, is not just that it makes it easier for me to find something. It actually gets to know me. It helps me, and I'm not sitting there typing and searching and scrolling. I'm just having a dialogue with my device in this case, and it brings back exactly what I want, and then gives me the ability to say, do you want me to bring that up for you? Even to the point of purchase. So that whole journey should be an agentic conversation. It shouldn't just be limited to a specific set in which I have to go back and start, sort of thumb typing again and getting what I want out of it.
At what point does a chatbot become an agent?
When it can do multi-turn, when it can do the full conversation, and it can add, right? It goes beyond just like Google's a search, right? I search and it brings back a ton of stuff. An agent goes back and forth until it brings me exactly what I want. It's not going to bring me back a page of 12 things. It's a conversation that says, how about this? One thing, how about this? You said you wanted this. And I'm, by the way, going through all the stuff, all the inventory, all the products. And this is what I think you want. So it's that level of back and forth to get to one thing versus a one question to get to many things.
I love it. When customers began to purchase, say, through like a ChatGPT or Gemini or the AI platform, or even a retailer's own agent, how does it sort of change, in your opinion, the traditional e-commerce customer journey?
Well, the whole introduction of another sort of checkpoint for the consumer is actually very scary for e-commerce, because if you look at what Google and OpenAI and everyone's doing, is they're launching these personal agents. And one, because they're way out in front of most e-commerce companies. So my advocation for any e-commerce companies, you got to catch up, because if you don't catch up and give your consumers a very elegant, simple, conversational, agentic interface to buy things, someone else will do that. And in some cases do that on your behalf. So it's not as if you have to worry about your competitors, building an agent faster than you. You've got to really keep up with the agentic race, because chat will do it. And what they'll do is they'll be the ones that interface for the consumer, get all of that consumer intelligence, everything around what you were looking for, a little bit about you. And then all of a sudden, if you're selected, right, you're out of control. You are no longer in control of the consumer dialogue, the consumer conversation, or even the selection criteria. You immediately go from retail to wholesale. Now you no longer are collecting intelligence and meeting a consumer and saying, oh, this is what they wanted. Let me add some things to what you want, improve cart value, and get the purchase. You literally get a purchase order from chat. You don't know who, you don't know what they were looking for. You probably competed on price, which means it's a race to zero. You're trying to just be the best, the price leader, which is not a place that e-commerce wants to be. But that's the biggest impact today, I think, of agentic on shopping, isn't whether e-commerce is deploying it correctly or not. We'll talk about that. It's actually that they need to jump on this, because they'll lose customer contact. They'll lose customer intelligence, and they'll go from a true retail business to a wholesale order fulfillment. And again, that's not where any major brand wants to be.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, essentially the agent becomes the new storefront.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so at that point, who owns the customer relationship? If the journey doesn't begin on your website and beginning somewhere else, now you're kind of out of luck.
Yes, absolutely. It is all about consumer intelligence, what I call consumer intimacy, right? I know my consumers. I know what they want. I know how they buy. I know how they want to buy. You lose all that, right? Now you're just, like I said, you're just a wholesale order taker, and you're praying that the chat or Google actually represents you the right way. Again, that's what I said. Your fate, your intelligence, everything has now been removed from you. So that's what's at stake here, and why e-commerce cannot wait. You cannot wait, because this is not about, oh, just another technology, we'll get around to it. There are massive innovations and there's massive developments that are happening that are going to take the consumer away from retail brands, from e-commerce brands. And again, that's not a position anybody wants to be in.
Not even close. Where do you think, so for AI shopping agents, where are they actually really doing well for customers right now, in your opinion?
I think everybody has taken a piece, like you mentioned, shopping, right? The search capability. I think most companies are not looking at releasing their entire customer journey to an agent, because I think it's a little bit immature. But you can pick pieces of it, whether it's the login process or it's the search or even the purchase. Pick a piece of that customer journey and have an agent help. And then once it's perfected, that step of it, you can slowly start to add and do more, and you can expand it. And ultimately, again, the goal should be that you want to create a pure agent experience, a true agent interaction, and make it as seamless and as pleasant as possible for the consumers. If I can just speak to my laptop about what I want to buy, and I'm just literally arms crossed, sitting back, and I'm ordering something, and that's an amazing future. If I could do that as a consumer, I'm all in, right? Stop the typing, stop the searching. I'm just leaning back, right? So that should be the mission and the goal of any e-commerce agent team, is you want to create what we call a lean back experience. You want your consumers to just lean back and be able to buy things from you frictionlessly, efficiently, and what we call, high quality experience.
It's the step up in sort of functionality of search on the internet when Google sort of gains the dominance, right? Where it's like you have billions and billions of web pages on the internet. Well, how do you find what's the most relevant, right? And you're, instead of going through directories by directory by directory, it's like you're just going to spend all your entire life to find the right answer. So Google sort of has done that step. Now it's taking it even further, because now it can actually take and do that comparison, do that research. So it's like, I think where shopping agents really will give that lean back experience is in reducing the research time or comparing complex products, right? Like there's a real comparison between your product and somebody else's, and it's complex. I mean, agent can really help have that dialogue with you, having that question and answer, or even narrowing large catalogs down. So if you're a retailer with a big catalog, what is the recommendation for that particular person based on a whole bunch of criteria? And ultimately we're sort of reducing cognitive load. Like even in my own experience, I feel like the ideal agentic output for me is allow me to get all of the data as quickly as possible and really think about the strategy, like the big picture and the why, right? And so it's that cognitive load, and reducing that on my end allows me to make better ultimate decisions. And so I think that's sort of the ultimate customer outcome too. It's like, how do we reduce the cognitive load so they can have that lean back experience and just make good decisions, or have the AI agent eventually buy that product for them?
Yeah, that is what I call the utopian vision for AI, is that it makes our lives more efficient, right? It's not just about automating. It's not just about conversation. It is literally about that exactly thing that you just talked about, which is, how do I take a sea of information? And by the way, multi-brands, right? Or in the case of a large, e-commerce company, massive catalog. And I would venture to say that fatigue is probably one of the reasons why people don't buy. It's not about, in case of, people's, price. Maybe I didn't have the right products. Maybe your experience to get to purchase was so long and cumbersome and complex and multi-choice that you call it mental load. That's a great word. I fatigued. And so I think the ability to automate that process, to get to know the shopper and start to develop the patterns of, okay, this is what I think you need, and then present two things. That is exactly the sort of what I call the utopian delivery of an AI agent, is, can you make it more efficient? These are all experience things, by the way. This is exactly why we say it is not about break fix. It's not about QoS. Did the agent actually respond, right? Every company out there today will tell an e-commerce company, I help you build a great agent. It'll respond accurately and it will respond fast. Right. That is not what we're talking about. We are talking about an experience. Can the agent get to know me and answer my question in fewer turns, and doesn't ask me 15 times? Am I not repeating myself? Right? Those are not QoS. That's experience level stuff. And then in the end, can you efficiently get me to a great outcome? Not get me to an outcome, because as your opening said, you can actually get to an outcome and frustrate your consumer. There's a point in the journey where the grind takes over. I'm halfway. and I need this. So I'm
Yeah.
already halfway. I'm going to finish this. That person
Right.
never comes back, but the
Right.
e-commerce company celebrates, going, "Oh, we got to the outcome." And that's why we differentiate between outcome and experience, because
For
just
sure.
because you got to the outcome doesn't mean they're a repeat customer. That just means they got far enough where they were just committed to the grind and they got done,
Right.
but they're never coming back.
Yeah.
Experience is where you build shopper loyalty, you build buyer loyalty.
Oh, I love that. That's a great transition because I mean, the promise is clear: less searching, fewer tabs, less cognitive load, faster decisions. But
Yeah.
to your point, something faster does not automatically make it better.
Yes.
And so let's talk about when convenience turns into friction, because I think this is
Mhm.
a good transition point, because you've sort of argued that an agent can complete its task, which you just said, and still deliver a bad customer experience. What does that look like in practice?
Yeah, well, I'll give you two examples, and I use this with my wife. And when I book travel, because I'm a global services on United, 2 million miler. I got nothing for that, by the way, but a card when I got on my 2 million mile flight. So for those that are curious, 2 million miles gets you nothing.
They
It
should
got
at
me a
least have
card.
figured one of those little like champagne poppers from like Halloween or like 4th of
Yeah,
July, poof, and like sprayed
yeah.
confetti on you when you walked
George
in, but
Clooney up in the
nothing.
air was 100% accurate. When I got there was nothing. But I'm a 2 million miler. So when I go to book a flight, I need fast. So if I'm going to talk
Yeah,
to an agent, I want that agent to be no nonsense. Here's what I want. Here's where I'm going. Here's where I want to stay. Now, here's everything I need. Get me my flight. My wife, on the other hand, when she books our travel, is a research. Like, she just loves
yeah,
questions. Like, let me ask you this. Well, how about this? What about this date? What about this airport? What about? So she's very much a research. That's the perfect example of the contrast of the experience has to be personalized, because it's not
yeah.
even a single experience that you have to shoot for. You have to shoot for
True.
my experience, which is transactional. But if you push my wife to decide, she'll disconnect and she'll never come back.
Yeah, yeah,
You start asking me a million questions. I got 3 minutes. I got no time. I'm out. So when we talk about experience, it's not even a binary thing. It's actually a very
mhm,
personal thing that your agents should understand. Am I talking to somebody that likes upsells? Am I talking to someone that wants upgrades, add-ons? Or am I talking to someone that is in a hurry and just wants to get a transaction, just needs to get this done? That's the
yeah,
difference in good experience and bad experience. It's not just the technical pieces. It's not just the,
yeah,
well, did it work? Did it answer the correct answer? That is low level experience stuff. The true premium consumer retention experience means you built an experience that I enjoyed, that met
yeah,
me where I'm at. And by the way, every other consumer that comes through would say the same thing, even though their experience expectations were different. That's the promise of agentic: is it can learn, it can personalize, and it can meet every individual consumer where they are with the best experience. That's when we
sure.
start talking about delivering the full value.
So it sounds like brands should start to define agent success a lot differently. Not just
Yes.
how many conversations were had, or maybe even how much revenue was generated from their agent, but what
Mhm.
was that experience? How do you measure experience through sort of the AI shopping agent in your guys' experience? What you're doing? Can
Yeah,
dive in.
there's a couple what I would call baseline experience metrics. One is, we call it turns to intent. Everybody
Mhm.
should understand, how fast did it take my agent to understand what Keith wanted?
Yep.
How many turns, right? It should be 1 or 2 turns. That should be it.
Sure.
If it starts getting into 5, 6, and 7, that means I'm repeating myself, and the agent is
Yeah.
not getting what I want. And so that's wasted
Sure.
consumer time. And by the way, you're wasting money, because all that is tokens. So every single turn is a
Yep.
token. So you're spending
It is
money on that.
making money.
But
Yeah.
but then but then we start measuring things like sentiment, right? We start understanding, did the sentiment improve or did it go down? Those are the things. Those are the smoke signals before there's fire. And so we start tracking the sentiment. Was the reaction starting to get negative in emotion? Was there repetition? Was there what we call reclassification? I had to ask again, and I had to correct the agent. No, I wanted this. Those are called reclassifications. So
Right.
those are all things that are smoke signals to say, I have a problem and I need to log in and fix it. So that's exactly what we're doing. Is we're making sure that from the conversation started, I know what you want, I understand how you want it and what you want to achieve. And then in the end, by the way, in the end, you can start to look at things like agent attribution to cart value increase. In other words,
Yeah.
was the intent X, but the cart value was X plus 500. That means
True.
the agent actually took it from a single intent, I want this, and upgraded to something even more. So that's what we
Make
call
you more
agent
money.
agent
Yep.
attributed, not that they started with an intent of X plus 500 and it ended at
Yep.
X plus 500, but we start with an intent that in the end, the cart value was up 500. That's an agent that's attributing itself to I'm growing your business. So those
Yeah.
are all things that we measure all again in real time, and we give the businesses the ability to see those things and then make adjustments as they're starting to go wrong, not tomorrow when you
Right.
log in and go, oh crap, my
Sure.
sales
Sure. Sure.
cratered, right? My agent was giving things away. My agent was, completely misanswering every question, right? Tomorrow's not when you want to find that out.
Yeah. 100%. No, I love that. I think that's super smart. I think too, like the challenge with all AI is context, right? And
Mhm.
so context, I would think, becomes the most difficult problem for any agent, especially a customer facing one, right? Because you may not have a lot, but if this is a new person to your website and you don't have any sales history, you have no background on them, they land, context becomes a major question mark, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
how much content how does the agent approach context to new people to the experience or to the website?
Yeah. So the way people should think about context is it's a dimension.
Right.
So people, context is not an all-encompassing context. It's usually going to be I have a pricing table, for example. That's context. I have products, so that could be
Sure.
context. So
Sure.
what we measure is when things are good. Obviously, we say your metrics are all positive. As I mentioned a minute ago, if turns to intent starts to spike and it starts to increase, that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
We immediately break it down by dimension. So we can actually show the context that's being wrong. Because again, it's not monolithic and it's never an agent is making everything wrong. It's usually some small piece of context, like a product, for example, right? So that piece of context is where the agent is making a mistake. So you can log in, you can fix it. There's other context that we solve for too, which is behavioral patterns, right? So you mentioned somebody comes in that's brand new. Well, I can start to piece together behavior patterns based on what did you ask for. So if you asked for a T-shirt, for example, if you start with a T-shirt, I can sort of start moving you through either a transactional shopper, because not many people start with just a T-shirt, and I may start to try and probe about, well, what are you looking for, and I can start to figure out what outfit you're looking for, or what destination you're looking for. If you come in and you swing big, and you're like a suit, now I know upgrades possible. So therefore, the behavior pattern can change on the agent's context. So context is something that isn't solved monolithically. It's really understanding where is my context weak? Where are things that I should be changing and modifying either the prompt, or I'm logging in and changing a RAG server, the database servers, or even just educating the agent on saying, okay, when this happens, do this. So there's varying degrees and ways context is used, but this is where you use experience, a highly dimensional experience product, because we'll isolate where the context is weak, and you can log in and say, okay, I need to fix that. Otherwise, it's a game of whack-a-mole. You could never figure it all out. It's always going to be something new all the time.
Yeah, yes. I mean, because you could basically give the agent context like, oh, this product ended up in the cart. Like, this is the product that this person's asking about. But we know based on our years of history and data that people who buy this also buy XYZ, or they're they're more of a VIP level customer because of price point or whatever their basket tends to look like, right? So all of that's context that you already have. You don't even have to ask necessarily the customer about, right? So it's just context that you've already provided based on the data that you have. And how do you do that efficiently and effectively, right? To your point. So you're asking less questions to the customer itself and making smarter inferences, I guess, right? Until you get that final clarification, or they take the action that you're trying to walk them through, help them solve the problem.
Absolutely.
So most brands sort of think about personalization sort of in terms of just purchase history or segments or product recommendation. How is like genuine context maybe within what we're talking about different from sort of conversational or conventional personalization? So it's like we have the context, we have all this other purchase history and segments and all the stuff we mentioned. Is there a difference between that and sort of like the personalization or the context you're trying to capture in the chat itself with the customer, right? Does that make sense? It's like we have all this other historical stuff. What do we really need information wise from that customer to kind of bring it all together?
Yeah, I mean, most of it is companies collect today. If I get some level of personal data. I understand, purchase history. You mentioned the purchase history. The piece that's missing and that we provide and that we really help drive with an agentic solution is not just what people bought. That's the purchase history.
Yeah.
It's how they buy it, right? Because if you understand how people buy, back to my example with my wife and I, if you understand how they buy, then you can make a whole lot more recommendations, or you can make the experience even more efficient. So most of what people buy, the point of purchase, here's your purchase history, gives you almost like a one-dimensional view of a consumer. When you really start talking about an agent, it comes down to, and the analogy I use all the time is, if you hired a salesperson, the salesperson doesn't just sell by what did they buy, and then they make a phone call and say, you want this, here it is, buy it, I'll load your credit card. They actually get to know the person. And the reason why you hire salespeople, and great salespeople are great salespeople, is because they get to know the buyer. They get to know how you speak, they get to know how you're even your sense of humor, because again, everything is an experience. And so if you understand the behavior pattern of how people buy, just like a great sales rep understands how people buy and they match that pattern, that's the big piece with an agentic solution that ensures that every agent conversation doesn't start robotically the same way, right? Every single transaction is the same. We're not homogenous in who we are. You and I may buy the exact same thing in two different ways. And by the way, be frustrated if I don't get to buy it the way I want to buy it. So the behavior pattern of how people buy is absolutely essential to an agent, because otherwise it's going to treat everybody the same. And that's clearly not how people buy if you were to go to brick and mortar, right? Everybody buys differently.
100%. So let's transition to the next sort of topic, because I think it's a good point to move into why traditional analytics may miss agent failure. Because we're talking about, you need to have this. Well, how are we measuring whether that ultimate success of that agent is? Obviously, we can look at it, cart plus sort of the metric that you offered, but I think that experience, right? The number of turns, the frustration level that people may express to your agent, right? And so that is harder to capture, I think, in sort of traditional analytical models, right? When you think about it from that standpoint. Well, what's your take on that? So we're still looking at customer behavior through funnels, typically, most classically, right? So traditional funnels become less useful as shopping becomes more conversational and non-linear. So walk us through some of that, where non-linear conversational e-commerce flies in the face of our classical analytical funnel.
Well, I'll give you a stat. I'm going to have to recall the stat. My marketing team will kill me if I don't get this right, but I think it was 59%, or I'm trying to remember the stat. I think it was 59%, 60, somewhere in that range, percent of buyers don't operate in a funnel. When we ran behavior patterns, and I'll give you that same example of a research shopper, which means I go through the whole funnel and I get to purchase, but I go backwards and I go back in the funnel and I start looking around again, right? Typical funnel analytics calls that an abandonment, right? They abandoned. No, I didn't leave. I just went back in the funnel. But funnel analytics don't go backwards. They just go sequentially. Customer journey maps go sequentially. So the world doesn't operate like that. So first and foremost, the foundational element called funnels is flawed, massively flawed. It makes you feel good because it's a very neatly organized, step-by-step sequential funnel, but humans don't operate in sequentially neat, organized funnels. We bounce around. We're very random. We go to one stop, we leave. Then we come back later and we finish the transaction. So there isn't a neat way you can package up human behavior. It's very messy. And that's why patterns are why we say those are the true ways to see how people buy, not funnels. It's like I said, 60% of the time your data is wrong. So it's flawed. That's why traditional analytics don't pick up conversations either, because conversations don't move in a very neat sequential sequence, right? I'm going to collect all these words and I'm going to make sure that people move through, and I say, hi, what do you want? Here it is. You want your credit card? Like that does not happen, right? The conversations are what we call dynamic, right? They're not predictable. So all analytic tools today are not built for agent analytics, period. They're just not. Matter of fact, most are not built for true product intelligence either, but we won't go there. But I'll stop on that.
That's a different show.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the old Nielsen numbers in TV. Everyone knew they were flawed. It was the only thing that we're using. So we'll just all go with the wrong numbers. I really believe that's how product analytics is flawed, but everybody uses it. So let them keep going. But when you get to the agent world, it will not measure an agent conversation. It literally simply cannot do it because it's dynamic, it's random, and it's back and forth. And they're not built for that. They're built for very sequential, neat funnel sequences.
They need that neat data. So that raises an important question. And so then how do we measure pattern behavior within our agents effectively.
Yeah. I mean, you need a company like Conviva, and I'm not, being
There we go.
sort of brash here, but we've cracked the code of being able to take an agent conversation and break it into what we call semantics, right? Semantics means if you say hi, hello, how are you? The semantic is greeting, right? So
Right.
it's just another abstraction of how do you take many ways somebody can do something and put it into a single way so that you can start to track it. So number one is we have the intelligence and we built the technology because we're not looking for sequential journeys. We actually can just take words and build a semantic pattern or semantic map, which means greeting is this, and then we create patterns out of semantics, which means we can take a conversation and 100 people can have the same conversation using different words, and we can convert that to a specific semantic pattern and say, well, even though their words are different, their semantics were the same. And now you can start to deal with a commonality, because if you just go on conversations, which everyone else does, you have a problem because people might use two different words for the same thing. Well, how do you handle that? It doesn't change what they ask for.
Sure.
It's the same thing. So first and foremost, you need a technology that can convert the conversation to a semantic map, and then convert that to patterns. And then, by the way, start to create metrics. And when I say a metric, intent, for example, the number of turns to intent, which means when you go from hi to this is what I want, and the agent knows what you want, how many turns did that take? Right. So now you don't just take the words, the patterns, the maps and the patterns. You actually start to measure the number of turns in between each one and start to log that in real time. And you do that, and you can do that by dimension, as I mentioned, where if all of a sudden the turns start to increase, you can click on that metric and see what was the dimension that contributed to that turns to intent growing. So that's how we do what we do. I have 4 founding PhDs, 4 co-founder PhDs that would scream at me right now and say, you made that overly simple.
You overly
simplified the problem. We have a very complex technology, but that's essentially how we do what we do. And therefore you can convert conversations into true objective quality of experience metrics. That's how we do it. So, but it's a very hard problem, suffice to say, and that's why we believe there's only one Conviva.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. And I think that what I've seen in the data I've been looking at just proves the fact that what we just discussed around funnel and analytics falling short is only going to be more apparent as these agents pick up speed, pick up momentum, and really start to impact and get higher levels of adoption, right, within your customer base. So I think it's just going to be this screaming big sign, neon sign that says, "Hey, the way you track things is not working anymore, and you're going to change your model around for sure."
And be very weary of people who say outcome is the number one thing. Right? There are tons of agent analytics companies out there, and even product analytics companies trying to get into agents. And because they can only do low-level events, outcome is an event, right? Purchase is an event I can collect.
Yeah.
The rest of it in the middle is a plate of spaghetti that I don't know what to do with, but I'll argue that, I can get more people to outcomes. And even their pricing techniques. Like I know a lot of agent companies, we only charge for outcomes. It's because you can't guarantee anything else.
Right.
The middle parts, you're all doing this. Hopefully I get to an outcome.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
And it gets there. And when it gets there, I high five. But as I said a minute ago, you can get to an outcome and still have a frustrated consumer that never comes back. Yeah. That's the problem you have to solve through experience. And those companies, like I said, they simply cannot do it. So
for sure.
I'm pretty excited.
Because purchase is the easiest metric to connect to real life events. Like I have the money, I have the address to ship the product. It's pretty clear that this was the outcome that you were pushing for. Everything else though, like any other analytics, it's kind of a hallucinated multi-channel, multi-touch attribution. It's like, well, we kind of think a little bit came from here and a little bit came from here. We had to model it out, but eventually they landed in sort of this purchase outcome.
Exactly. And anything that takes 3 or 4 days of data science to get to that answer, I don't know if I trust it. It should be immediate, right? It should be objective. Right. That's why all the metrics we build are objective metrics. Turn to intent is I can say that to anybody. And if you know turns means the number of conversation back and forths, and I said, hey, turns to intent, intuitively, less is better.
Yeah.
So that's why I said it should not be that complicated. It's not that hard. It is about translating the conversation into things that I need to be aware of so that I know my agent is a productive, efficient, and successful customer interface. So
I'm
it's
gonna
not,
start
again,
using that
just about
exact
outcomes.
term with my daughter who's 12. I was like, we're gonna talk about turns to intent. I don't want to have multiple conversations with you to get to the intent that we want. Right?
Exactly. Fewer turns, fewer turns.
It's a frustrating parent experience. No,
Yes,
but yeah, no, well, that's what the customers experience as well, right? Oftentimes,
absolutely.
so
It's
like,
the
just
same thing. If it
yeah,
takes me
exactly,
10 times to tell you what I want, I'm leaving.
exactly, exactly. I want to circle back to earlier in our conversation when we talked about who owns customer relationship, because I do think that's another important piece of this agentic AI in e-commerce. And so, like when the third-party agent recommends or purchases a product for a customer, um, it's like, yes, the retailer might gain a sale, right? Because it's coming in from maybe an external agentic, as opposed to maybe one that they would own or control.
Mhm.
But what are they giving up if we just sort of abdicate our customer experience to all the AIs out there? Like, what are we really giving up as a brand?
One, you're giving up incredible customer intel because not everything results in a purchase. And so there's so
Right.
much that you can learn about what people came for, what they searched for. By the way, what they put in the cart that they didn't necessarily purchase right away, that
Sure.
means they had a high intent, but you need to figure out something to unlock that intent. And it might be free
Yeah.
shipping. It might be a
Sure.
15% off coupon, right? You can try different things to unlock that from the cart. Those are all gone now. Those are abstracted. I ask Chad a
Yeah.
question and I start going through that process and I get to the end and maybe I'm like, man, that's just a little too high. Maybe 5%, 10% too high. I didn't
Sure.
want to spend that much. Now Chat's like, great. Can I go find a different one for you that meets your price point? Your competitor
Yeah.
just won. You would have said, well, here's a 5% off, 10% off coupon. You lose that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
sure, you pick up the purchase, but the purchase is going to be done on a price leader, which means your margins are going to erode because you're raised to zero. You're either, or you're doing the old Google trick, which is you're going to pay for SEO. You're going to pay for that to be up
Right.
higher, which
Sure.
means right there, money out of pocket, and you still don't know that they're going to pay. You're just improving your
Yeah.
chances. So again, from the e-commerce perspective, there's nothing positive about this whole, personal agent from Chat and Google, because eventually they're going to own the consumer and they're going to control price, they're going to control margin, and they're going to control all the intelligence, and you can't
Yeah.
get that back. You cannot get that back. That's why the ability to build a successful agent today is so important. You have to keep up. You don't just launch an agent because if yours is bad and theirs is better, they're going back to them. So that's why when
Sure.
we say if you're going to build an agent, you're going to launch an agent, give us a call. We'll help you get that experience to where it's optimized. And by the way, that's why I say this over and over again. The promise of agentic is a consumer efficiency play.
Yeah. For
Those
sure.
that can build something that I can log in or I can just pick up and start talking to and I get what I want done as efficiently as
Mhm.
possible, those are the successful leaders. Those are now the
Yeah.
winners, right? So
Yeah.
it isn't just about having one. It's not just about outcomes. It's about, man, did I enjoy that? Because if that's
Yeah.
easy, I'm coming back, right? I'm going to come
Yeah.
back and I'm going to do that again. I always say, I would love to go home and speak to my house and it does things.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to touch a device. I don't want to log in, passcode, right?
Yeah.
Search, add to cart. I just want to say things. And if I can get to a world in which I can just speak and say things and things happen, that's the winner. And that's why I say that's how e-commerce brands should be thinking about agentic
Sure.
is it efficient and is it enjoyable? And if you've achieved that, you will be a market leader because people will come to you. You won't have to
Sure.
worry about them going to someone else because it's more efficient.
Yeah. I mean, you nailed it earlier in our conversation when you were talking about, hey, we kind of optimize for that short-term that purchase conversion at the expense of reducing our long-term customer value because they had a terrible experience and they're never going to come back.
Yes. Yes.
And it's crazy.
Yeah,
So then,
quality of experiences today. You look at every store today, right? No matter what your business is, everybody's trying to have a great experience. Why would you not want the same from your agent? So it's actually a continuation of most businesses' already stated strategies. We want a great consumer experience.
All right. Well, let's dive into we're gonna make a quick pivot. I'm gonna do our rapid fire. So
Good.
before we wrap up, these are just a rapid fire round. You just give me the first answer that pops into your head to these questions, right?
Okay, good. Let's go.
All right. Let's see. What's the most important agent metric that brands are not tracking?
Turns to intent. Out of the
sweet.
gate.
Out of the gate.
Out of the gate. If you miss that, the rest is irrelevant.
Voice shopping or text-based shopping, which becomes mainstream first?
Text-based. I think the interface, just the ability to type, is going to be here first. But I'm very high on conversational agents, big time.
What is one belief about AI agents that you've changed your mind about?
The utopian dystopian. What the impact will be on humanity. Right. There's a much bigger topic there that is not about e-commerce, but the whole there's all kinds of people can read about this, and I think there's a lot of news about what is there a utopian agentic or is there a dystopian, which really there's a fine line there. So I would say I've moved to the utopian version of AI and agents, that there is an ability for them to make our lives better.
Yeah,
and not be the end of humanity. So
not be the end. Which there's some pretty I was just reading about the OpenAI blog they put out where the agent that they had firewalled off, and it hacked its way out and went and hacked to get an answer to ask her. It was basically a cybersecurity. It was a cybersecurity evaluation that the engineers were asking this model. Well, the model then, to go find the answer, hacked its way out of the firewall, got on the internet, hacked the site that had the answer, which was like this OpenAI cybersecurity firm, and got the evaluation answers, and then gave it to the engineers, and they're like, wait, what? And it's just wild, and it was all just trying to figure out, trying to like give them what they wanted. It's like the super happy golden retriever that wants to make you happy at all costs, like do whatever it needs to do.
Except for it's ridiculously smart and learning all the time.
Exactly. It's overly intelligent and powerful, and has access to the internet.
Yes. No, that's what I said. The power is there to be really good and really bad. So we'll see.
One more question. What is the most underrated opportunity right now for e-commerce operators when it comes to
agentic? I think so much focus is put on product and product analytics, and can I build a great product and limit and reduce friction? And that's solving a short-term problem, because like I said, the real threat is not whether I can build a good digital product that works and doesn't have friction. It's, can I keep up with ChatGPTs and the other personal agents that are going to be taking my consumers from me? So without a doubt, the existential threat, the margin threat, the retail to wholesale conversion threat for e-commerce is you got to jump into the agents. And I use the analogy of going to the gym. Everybody knows it is indisputable. If you go to the gym and you get in shape, you live a healthier life. That's not in dispute. The reason why people don't is the pain that it takes to do it in the routine. So the process to get there is uncomfortable. E-commerce brands need to accept that fact. You got to. It is painful, and it will be in a launch, and it's going to be mature, and you got to find a way to do it. But that pain cannot keep you from doing it, because of the fact that on the other side, someone else is doing that and will take your consumer. You have to do it. So my advice is jump in, start to look at agents, start to pick pieces, start to measure it and see it, and do it in a very controlled way, and start to grow it. But you got to start now. If you wait because it's painful, the pain will never go away. It's still going to be there. You just are going to be left behind. And at that point, how many consumers have you lost?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I love that analogy. As someone who had the fun joy of doing leg day yesterday, I'm enjoying the aftermath of that from the gym. So I can relate. Get leg day, don't skip it. And the reason why you do is it's usually the worst. But awesome, Keith, this was a real pleasure. How can people stay connected with you?
They can come to our LinkedIn, Conviva.ai on LinkedIn, even me on LinkedIn, or Conviva.ai, our website. We're in our YouTube channel. So they're all places that we're constantly putting out content. We have a lot of good blogs and white papers on our website. So a lot of things, thought leadership pieces about, as companies start to look and start to deploy an agentic, how should they be thinking about it? But worst case, just reach out to us. We're happy to apply best practices, give people an ability to understand what they need to do. But most importantly, once you go to launch, to make sure that agent is efficient, and start tuning it so that you're creating an amazing experience, which will be the difference between success and failure of agentic e-commerce.
I love it. My big key idea, the transaction is not the entire customer experience.
Nope.
So adjust your thinking accordingly. Adjust your thinking accordingly.
It's the equal sign. The outcome is the equal sign. There's an equation before that is way more important than the equal sign. And if you don't get the equation right, the equal sign is irrelevant. And people stare at the equal sign without looking at the thing they can control, which is the equation, the experience.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Keith. It's been a pleasure having you on, and I look forward to
Absolutely.
diving into a bunch of your content because I'm super excited to
Absolutely.
hear what you guys are
Good.
putting out.
It's a great time. It's a fun time today.
Love it. Awesome. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much. Again, my name's Kyle. If you want to chat about e-commerce in general, feel free. There'll be a link that you can follow up and book a call with me if you want to try AI. If you want to learn more about AI agents and what Conviva is doing, definitely check them out as well. But we do audits all the time for customers and clients. So we'd love to chat. So with that, we'll wish you an amazing rest of your Tuesday, and go out there and be thinking about experience, not just transactions.